The effect of Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and Lactobacillus plantarum on the colonization of Escherichia E. coli. Escherichia E. coli, or E. coli, is a ubiquitous bacterium that is usually considered to be a part of a healthy intestinal tract. However, this bacterium can easily become pathogenic, causing infections including gastroenteritis, urinary tract infections or UTIs, pneumonia, and sepsis. These infections affect a cohort of people, but mainly affect children, elderly, and individuals with weakened immune systems. A UTI is an infection in any part of the urinary system, including the kidneys, ureters, bladder, prostate, and urethra. Females are at higher risk of acquiring a UTI because the female anatomy includes a shorter urethra, and therefore a shorter distance for bacteria to reach the bladder. However, UTIs are still not uncommon in males, children, and elderly. UTIs pose a multitude of symptoms that include diarrhea, urinary frequency, urinary urgency, flank pain, and fever. According to the National Library of Medicine, about 20% of women have a UTI annually. In fact, in 2011 alone, UTI hospital admissions resulted in $2.8 billion of increased healthcare costs. UTIs can be treated as inpatient or outpatient. Following a urinalysis to determine if a patient has a UTI, patients are usually prescribed antibiotics. However, these antibiotics have many issues including antimicrobial resistance, which will be determined by a urine culture. Other adverse reactions resulting from antibiotic use can range from rashes and nausea to hearing loss and organ damage. The use of probiotic therapy was introduced by a Russian scientist named Eli Mechnikov in the early 1900s. He prescribed fermented milk with probiotics to patients to restore their microbiome. Today, it costs anywhere from $15 to $100 to purchase probiotic supplements, which is relatively cost-effective compared to standard treatment of urinary infections. This intriguing research led me to study the effect of different probiotic strains on the colonization of E. coli to determine their ability to prevent infections such as UTIs. The first step of my procedures was to grow the E. coli and Lactobacillus plantarum. Due to a lack of appropriate cold storage, I could only test with Lactobacillus plantarum, which limited the data collected. However, it resulted in my research being more targeted. After retrieving my live cultures, I was able to streak each blood agar plate and incubate the bacteria overnight. As you can see in the photo, the E. coli produces cloudy colonies, while the Lactobacillus plantarum produces transparent colonies. To complete the setup of my experimental groups, I used 6 test tubes to ensure that the E. coli was being tested against an equal density of Lactobacillus plantarum. This step was completed using a spectrophotometer to produce quantitative data, allowing my research to be more accurate. I was then able to combine the solutions into their corresponding test tubes and plate them after incubation. To complete the setup of my control groups, I used 6 test tubes to ensure that each test tube had the same quantity of bacteria. When utilizing the spectrophotometer for this step, my research teacher was able to guide me through the setup and functionality of this machine. Then I was able to transfer each solution to its corresponding test tube and add the antibiotic nitrofurantoin to each of my 3 test tubes. Next, I incubated the liquid culture of each overnight and then streaked the corresponding blood agar plates the following day to determine the growth. When I collected data, I observed contamination on one of the Lactobacillus plantarum blood agar cultures. An unknown bacteria was found on one of the plates of Lactobacillus plantarum streaked prior to the handling of E. coli. It was determined that did not likely originate from the liquid culture, as this contaminant was not present on the plate post-inoculation with E. coli. The contaminant may have been present on the plate prior to its use in my experiment. In addition, I was able to observe that the Lactobacillus plantarum resulted in a decreased colonization by E. coli by about half, and the nitrofurantoin was not completely successful. Although the 0.5 McFarland standard that I utilized made the colonies more difficult to count, I was still able to effectively determine the estimated number of colonies on each plate. These results supported my hypothesis that probiotic therapy has the ability to decrease bacterial infection while also decreasing antibiotic resistance that results from